I will tell you a story now, an old, winding tale that moves like slow music, that breathes like a long evening, and that settles round your shoulders like a warm shawl. Imagine, if you will, a very large and very old theater whose stones remember countless footfalls and whose rafters have held 1,000 secret lights. We begin on a spring night when the city is luminous and gentle, when the air smells faintly of blossom, and the sound of distant carriages passes like a promise. In this house of music and velvet, where chandeliers hang like constellations and staircases curl like sleeping riverbanks, the ordinary and the mysterious meet. That confluence is where our story takes shape, as soft and inevitable as twilight. In the wings and behind the curtains live more than actors. They are small kingdoms of breath and hush, the dressing rooms where ribbons are tied and voices are coaxed, the corridors where stagehands pass with careful, practiced steps, the catwalks and the planks that remember every measured step of every long-ago entrance. There are old mirrors that never lie and new mirrors that show more than faces. There are dressing tables with perfumed rings of memory, and there are private boxes, soft, carved nests of crimson that look like little palaces overlooking the stage. Those boxes are for patrons and lovers, and 100 kinds of expectation. One among them, a particular box on the grand tier, is a tiny island of silence with its own rumor. It is said that whatever sits in that box is never quite what it seems to be. It is said that whoever sits there is both seen and invisible. It is called, gently and with a little caution, Box 5. Now picture a young woman. She is slight as the hush between two notes, and she carries a small, luminous sorrow like a secret jewel. Her name is Christine. When she smiles, light moves into the corners of her eyes. When she sings, the walls themselves lean in. She has the careful steadiness of someone who grew up in a home of soft music, months of violin practice, by a sea that remembers faraway shores, a father who taught her to hold a bow with reverence, and an old teacher who tended her voice like a tender flame. She did not come to grand stages with a blaze of ambition. She came with a quiet, private faith that music could be a companion through all things. The stage becomes the place where that private flame burns bright and gentle. Yet Christine is also someone who is careful about her steps. She inhabits her small world with the polite caution of someone who has known loss and who keeps a fragile hope under glass. Close now to Christine is a young man named Rael. He has a ship's steadiness in his bones, the soft courage of someone used to weather and to doing what needs to be done. He loves with the immediate, unstudied devotion of early love. The affection he carries for her is sweet and true. It is the kind of love that wants to shelter and to give, to be the harbor in which the other can rest. He is earnest, he is gentle. With him, there is no harsh claim, only the desire to watch over the one who moves him so utterly. Their encounters are like small musical phrases, notes that answer one another in a tender duet. As audiences watch and applaud, the two often meet in the hush behind the scenes, talk in whispers and keep the simplest promises of seeing one another, of walking together, of being, for a little while, just two people who look forward to dinner and a laugh. Their shared moments have the kind of lightness that could ease the weight of any longer, darker night. Above them hangs a world less gentle. The building is old enough to contain its own shadows. Some corners are never banished by the daylight. In the cellars and the sub-basements, there are passages that run like slow rivers, and places where the stones keep to themselves many, many winters. Among the staff, those who fold costumes and sew on sequins, those who roll up carpets and guide horses for a procession, strange rumors grow like moss. They speak in low voices of a presence that moves through the theater without making the sound of feet, of a pale figure in dress clothes who has been glimpsed now and then like a sigh. At first, the talk is small, quick jokes, nervy laughter. But when strange accidents begin to happen, laughter hushes into a careful superstition. A man comes back shaken from around beneath the stage. Another reports a head of flames moving at seat height in a corridor. A chief stagehand speaks plainly of a figure who moved like a skeleton, whose eyes were great and hollow. The chorus of whispers grows, and with it a real unease. More than once, an old woman who keeps a box for someone unseen will say quietly that there is a figure who comes to the box to listen. She will say that she receives from him small tokens, coins, sometimes flowers, always a program. She will say he has a voice like no one else's, full, commanding, then soft, as though a prayer came through a closed door. And she will say, with the particular conviction of those who have lived long and have seen many things change, that to speak of the figure is to invite his notice. So she asks the children who work around to keep silence. No one quite knows whether to disbelieve these hints, but also no one is quite able to dismiss them. So the stage is set, Christine with a voice that will astonish, Raoul with the simple depth of his affection, and a building that holds both light and very deep shadow. Around them, the night of the theater moves like water, carrying gossip and small kindnesses in its flow. A gala evening arrives, one of those nights when the house is full of people, and the air is charged with the flutter of silk and the low hum of expectation. Conductors stand ready to lift their batons. Garments whisper as singers take their places. On the stage, the chorus gathers like a train of gentle comets. The orchestra breathes together. The theater itself breathes. And then one by one, the episodes unfold. A young singer steps in for a failing star and proves to be a miracle. Where there was perhaps a little sympathy before, now the applause rings like a discovery. The little violinist who has held back her talent until now shows a voice that is, in those who hear it, an awakening. In that sound, there is everything. The memory of a father's bow on strings, the small courage of practice, the sudden arrival of something like grace. Christine's performance leaves the house in a kind of silence that is almost a sound, a hush that trembles with wonder. For a while, everything is luminous, but life rarely keeps its light in a single place. Alongside triumph can come envy. A star who finds herself eclipsed by a newcomer may grow brittle. Their ordinary, sensible rivalries become more complicated when fame fans even the smallest anxieties into large stakes. Then, at the background of these human stirrings, the soft rumors begin to throng back. The box that usually has no occupant has been reserved for someone who insists. A demand for a veil of privacy becomes a demand for a private space. And increasingly, it seems that the unseen one has rights in the house that his absence should not grant. The managers, the gentle lords of contracts and programs, are flurried. A note arrives, written in a strange, childlike hand in red ink. It is a demand, a lease on a box, a sum to be paid with the regularity of the moon. The leaders of the opera, with all their experience of music and business and the complicated nature of a season, look at the page and do not know how to answer. A specter in dress clothes requesting a salary. The demands might be regarded as a strange joke or a superstition, except that, at the moment when the managers ignore them, small things go amiss. A chandelier falls, an accident, the experts say. The stage is found empty at a crucial moment. A rope vanishes. A man is found hanging one night where a rope should have been steady. People begin to look again. Jokes curdle into cold alarm. And this climbing sense of unease settles on the house like an old mist. Christine grows quiet again. She sings as only she can, but she is no longer quite wholly at ease. She believes in her music, yes, and she believes in an experience she calls her lessons, a voice that has taught her in the small hours. She calls it, in a mythic manner that is the honest language of someone raised with stars and old lullabies, the angel of music. She has been learning to trust this voice, and when Rael, who once rescued a scarf of hers from the chill sea, hears it and thinks it the sound of a stranger, he grows unsettled and jealous, and he follows a frightened hope until he hears a heartbeat behind the wall of his own confidence. There is a scene that stands like an ache in the story, a moment when Rael hides and hears a man's voice in the dressing room say the line, "Christine, you must love me." The phrase is simple and dangerous. When she speaks back, she says in a voice shaped by a truth that both stuns and restrains, "I sing only for you." Rael is struck by the intensity of that answer and by how, for a second, music and love and dread have braided themselves as if they were one. What follows is delicate and slow, like the careful breathing of sleep. Christine goes to nowhere and everywhere. She receives letters she will not explain. She takes walks at odd hours, and small importunate things happen, the missing of a ring, a furtive kiss that is not declared. Rael is torn because he loves, and is puzzled in equal measure. He wants, with the gentle impatience of youth, to break the mystery, to tear down the wall, and to know where the voice lives and what it means. Yet Christine, possessing a courage of her own, tells him to wait. She asks him to trust her for a little time, as she is learning something that is unlike any ordinary lesson. She speaks as though a great tenderness were the source of everything, an impossible tenderness that both contains and repels. And when Rael presses her in the hush of a night on a roof beneath a sky like linen, she says, with all the small dignity of a fragile hero, "I promise I will tell you. For now, you must believe me. There is something that binds me to it, and for reasons I do not yet understand, I cannot break it. If he is angry, he keeps it. If he is impatient, he hides it. If he is afraid of losing her, he is silent and offers himself to be patient like a prayer. And in this patience, the story deepens. For down below the marble, below the stage, there is a place that old city builders know, a hollow under the ground where the theater holds its long-term secrets, a crypt of props, an underwork of horses and harnesses, a place where steam and fire were once tended, and where men used to leave heavy crates and barrels. There is a lake too, a small, dark pool that sits like a heart in the floor of the building's lowest parts. It is the kind of place where the real weight of things lies. In the cool dark of these lower halls, there are echoes that do not find their way to the surface. There's a power that is slow and old like the water itself. And it is here that the impossible voice, the voice Christine calls her angel, finds an astonishing dwelling. It is a voice that can cross a wall, that can come through a mirror, and that can speak from within the bones of the place. Its owner is not entirely a man. He is not wholly a ghost either. He lives in complexity, a builder of trapdoors and of cunning constructions, a wizard of mechanics and sound, a genius who understands the secret language of ropes and of the weight that makes curtain and chandelier hang in their appointed places. He is known to some of the oldest workers as the one who knows the stage's secrets, and by others as merely a rumor. He is, as the story circles and revisits in increasing clarity, both brimming with artistry and shadowed by sorrow. No tale of this kind can skip the moment when everything collapses into crisis. For one evening, in the press of an audience and the delicate charge of an orchestra, Christine is called upon to sing when the great star of the house is unable to appear. The moment arrives, and she is radiant. Her voice is all the light of a weathered star, rising and opening, lifting everyone into a single breath of wonder. In the house, the effect is like the cool of River Street on a hot day. Every ear listens, as if the voice might reveal some secret the air has kept. Yet, while one part of the theater swells with applause, another part is very much quieter. There's a pocket of cold under the grandeur, Box 5 itself, reserved like an island of shadow. The managers, in their endless compromise between art and debt, have been forced at last to yield. There is a strange note, an ultimatum from the unseen occupant of that seat, and the managers, poor men between pillars, have to stand aside. It seems that this should be a trifle worth only a verse in the history of a house. Yet at the moment when the house is in its most luminous beauty, a young singer in a freshly minted glory, a small catastrophe unfurls with a horrible suddenness. A toad-like croak replaces a crystal high note. Where Carlotta should have shone, where the blade of her voice should have cut the air to silver, something that is not voice at all lashes, a mockery of sound, and it changes everything into confusion. Then, like storm in a small pond, the chandeliers move. A great weight, an old brass constellation, begins to slip from its hook. The orchestra stops as the theater shudders. People in the house shout and scramble. Someone dies in the panic as the chandelier crashes into the stalls. The managers look at one another like men who have been struck. It is a terrible moment. It is a moment that leaves a mark on the stone of the place and on the sleep of every person who was there. This catastrophe is both incident and incantation. For what the theater felt was not only the physical crash, but also the sense that a will beneath the floor had acted like a hand. The managers who had treated the unseen presence like a prank or a superstition are forced now to understand that they deal with a person of extraordinary means and strange need. In the days that follow, timid and brilliant police inquiries begin. People wander through the stage's vast interior, looking for tracks that might explain the impossible. Hermit-like figures are encountered, old women who keep a box of programs and coins, a Persian with patient eyes who will later tell the story in slow, warm words. There are scenes of accusation, moments when fear breeds suspicion, when colleagues suspect colleagues. But alongside all of this, Christine, whose voice is more fragile now in the light of these incidents, vanishes. She disappears in a way that is both ordinary and uncanny. Living among people, she is suddenly at a performance's height, not on the stage. For a long time, the public wonders what has become of her. A rumor circulates that a carriage took her away, that she eloped in a midnight lurch with a love. There are theories, whispers, even newspaper paragraphs that throw about names. But what the rumor fails to know, the people of the building know in their bones. She was taken beneath the floor. Reader has already felt, perhaps, that where there had been music, there is now a story of capture. Yet, in the midst of danger, there is also fidelity. The Persian, the old, patient man with eyes like far rivers, the unsentimental watcher who knows more than he says, takes upon himself to follow. He will lead others into the underworld of the opera, where water waits and boilers breathe, and there he will show how the corridors are built, and how the stone can be made to swing, like a door in a child's playhouse. He will reveal that these secret ways are neither simply accidental nor purely sinister. They are the evidence of a person who can bend architecture to satisfy sorrow, or to enact devotion in the only language he has. So we must ask, who is the inhabitant of these secret ways? He is a man of extraordinary craft and of monstrous solitude. He grew up somewhere in a world that spoils and is spoiled by life. He learned to sing as much as he learned to build. He has known admiration and how people look upon a strange face with discomfort. Perhaps he had been a prodigy, perhaps a boy with the smallest successes, and then a life of exile because the world is often unfeeling to the unusual. He became a builder of traps and a composer of uncanny devices. And then, in the heart of the theater, when the structure had been excavated down to water, and when the city had been made to build a stage and a grand stairway, and 1,000 rooms he found, by some chance or claim or cunning, the place to make a home. He made a house below the house, a secret dwelling lit by reflected and contrived light, filled with mechanical marvels and rooms that changed at the turn of a device. He made himself a small kingdom under the floor, and in that kingdom, he is as much a prisoner as he is sovereign. What he lacks in the ordinary human company, he pours into the art of sound and into the invention of small, terrible delights. Most of all, he invented a way to make a voice cross a wall and speak through a mirror. He found the place where sound can travel like a returning tide through stone and steel. And with that voice, he taught Christine in the hours when the house was empty, when the mirrors reflected and the dust motes were slow. He called himself, and perhaps more tenderly was called by her, a guardian and a teacher. Her gift to singing is to listen. His way of loving is to give her a voice. She, sweetly unsure of life's edges, accepted his gift as she might accept a cloak in winter. To Rael and to those who love her, she is a treasure whose care requires some courage. Yet it is precisely because he exists between ingenuity and shadow that the matter grows terrible. The human heart is not always wise in how it loves what it loves. This secret love is not simply romantic in the soft sense. It is the kind of devotion that can become a fierce obligation. The man is not content to teach and then let her go. His love is the sort that binds like ivy. He has built walls to keep her near and traps to test her courage. He will invent a mass and a requiem, both of them for the same altar, so that whether she says yes or no, the stakes are monstrous. As men and fate will, the threads tighten and time runs short. There's a night when all of the house shines, and when, beneath the lights, the terrible plan is almost put into motion. Something of the old world returns in this moment. The Persian and a younger man slip beneath the stage in a bundle of courage and plans, and carry with them a stubborn belief that together they can bring the other side of the house back into the light. They pass the rat catchers and the night shifts. They slip around the cellars and the old waterworks. The air grows cooler. The amniotic dark presses in. And in the deep, the lanterns show a world that looks as old as stone, both new and terribly ancient. They discover the door to the house on the lake, and in the belly of that house are rooms that turn their scenings like a stage set. A forest, then a desert, then a little chamber where mirrors multiply and repeat. It is both a place of mechanical whimsy and of cruelty. A tent of illusions becomes a trap. An iron tree takes its place among the reflections, a tree that echoes unknown stories. This is where the heart of the story breaks into 1,000 small cries and a single hammer-struck moment of choice. Within the mirror room, an engineered palace of illusions, someone ties a ring to a girl's finger and asks for a decision. He sets 2 small figures within boxes, a tiny scorpion and a little grasshopper, each carved and polished and weighted with destiny. To turn the scorpion is to take the path of love, its sting held like a promise, but with a life-saving craft beneath its claws. To turn the grasshopper is to choose a leap into a danger that will extend far beyond the small, the personal. This is the cruel poetry of the scene. The choice of one woman can determine the safety of hundreds. It is a moment in which tenderness becomes terror, in which love is both the shelter and the storm. Christine trembles and chooses. She chooses so that more may live, and because she sees, with the clarity of a person who has been made wise by suffering, that giving can sometimes mean turning toward a painful blessing. From that choice comes an outcome that is at once humane and improbable. The chambers fill with water, and the tide that rises is both literal and metaphoric, sweeping through the places of old stagecraft and moving us into an ending that is not simply about punishment, but about some resolution of loss. The heroism turns gentle when, in the end, Christine's capacity for mercy is the lever that changes the course of things. The man who had created the instruments of threat and of enchantment is rendered human by the fact of being loved back in the only way that pushes him toward a final honesty. He gives up his hold. There is a last moment in which he chooses as a person who is tired of life's constant masking, and who is, perhaps for the first time, ready to allow himself to be small and real. When the terror passes and the water settles, when the theater and its people hold their breath and then exhale, a kind of quiet returns. Some are wounded. A great chandelier once crashed, and the memory of its fall lasts like a particular scar. But there is also the image that stays of Christine as both singer and savior, a woman who created a voice both to charm but also to save, whose mercy is the single bright thread that held everything together when the building itself might otherwise have been rent. The builder, this strange, marvelous maker, goes on to be mourned in a way that is not less human for its strangeness. He dies, perhaps, by his own reckoning, because his life had been shaped by so many little cruelties he could not unlearn. He is given a small grave that is not unmarked. In the quiet days afterward, people talk in lower and more reverent tones. They speak of the house on the lake as if it were at once a secret and a lesson. The theater restores its programs. The stages are reset. The people are wound back into their faithful crafts. Yet the building keeps its scars and its secrets, and the story of a voice is folded into its memory. So as you lie quiet now, and your breath wants to slow like a measured phrase of music, you can think of that theater as a wide place where lights and shadows play, and where love, cunning, fear, and devotion entwine. You can imagine Christine with her small, steady hands, the same hands that made a gift of a ring, and imagine the voice that taught her, an instrument that could be both kind and fierce. Imagine Rael, full of simple, solid courage, who loved her like a harbor. Imagine the Persian, patient and watchful, who finally understood that to save was to be saved. Imagine the builder with his mechanical heart, who created palaces of illusion, and who, in the end, was held by his own capacity for feeling. And listen, beneath everything, there is a faint, soft musical thread, as if the house itself hums. It might be the echo of an aria, It might be the memory of a voice rising beneath a mirror and coming back, gentle and true. The house remains. The nights return. The curtains lift and fall. People come and go, and new voices fill up the air. But the story that moved quietly through the wings has its own patient life. It is the story of a voice that asked to be heard, and of a heart that asked to be seen. It is the story of small and brave decisions made in darkness that became the thing that kept others alive. In the hush that follows a day's bustle, in the small, honest safety of the world as you rest tonight, imagine that you are now sitting in an audience of one, safe and warm, listening to a voice that has passed on a little of its secret to you. Let it be a secret that is not a burden but a light. You are held, and the world, strange, fragile, beautiful, keeps turning, and the music, like a friend, waits for your return. Sleep then with the image of that house and its people in your mind. Let the quiet of the theater calm you. Let the memory of a ring on a finger and a brave, small turning fill you with something soft as a hymn. Rest now. The story is over for tonight, but it will be there the next time you hear a single, clear note at the edge of the dark.